Which of the following is the worst way you've seen someone lie to their spouse? During the man's 15-year marriage to his ex-wife, my uncle was his lawyer. A very nasty breakup happened when they split the goods evenly, even the piece of land where they built their house. She chose to build a new house right next to the old one. Keep in mind that there were at least 200 yards between the two home sites. The homes faced each other from the back. Sometime while the house is being built, a customer calls my uncle and wants to know if what he did was legal. She used to spend a lot of time in her garden, so he must have seen her every day. He got a female dog and named it after the woman he used to be married to. After letting his dog back inside, he would scream, "Susan, you B-word, get in here," after she came back inside from being outside. He would also scream if she urinated on the flowers. "Sorry, Susan, but don't pee on the flowers. On the other hand, Susan, you B-word, stop digging." The dog was listed as Susan, and she was a female, so his ex-wife could not do anything even if she called the cops several times. That's all there is to it. They hadn't been together for 10 years, but they didn't file for divorce until recently. She was going to receive his house, so he burned it down and faxed her the papers to show that she owned it. But he could go to jail for setting fires. A partner at my law company and a partner at another big firm are getting a divorce. Law office. I used to work at a law company that was pulled over. The woman sent more than 70 requests to businesses, banks, economic groups, and other places. She was sure he had hidden more than $20 million in another country. It got so bad that she had to look through records from 25 years ago to try to figure out his big conspiracy puzzle. In the end, after hiring 7 different lawyers and spending $1.5 million on legal fees, the judge said this was silly. There was no plot, and you have no right to any of this made-up $20 million. Keep in mind that he was a partner in a big law company that worked this way. Even though she made millions of dollars every year during her work, she seemed to be going crazy. The bad divorce wife got a safety order against the husband or wife. Pretty normal. Not a bad person, but not a great one either. After the split, his mother had been dying for a year. His sister was told by him to talk to his ex-wife and bring the kids to visit her in the hospital before she died. Wife never did. Instead, she went to court and said that he had broken the protection order by trying to contact her. A third party can't put you in touch with someone. Even though he admitted it and gave an answer, he was still found to have broken the order. While he was in jail, his mother died, and his wife never took the kids to see her. A story from my parents, who are lawyers. Because of this, the car was a big source of conflict between the husband and wife while they were getting a divorce. After long protests that he would never give up the car if the wife asked for something nice, like one of their holiday cabins, he finally gives up. It turns out that he was driving the car in a big circle around every day for 3 hours, putting thousands and thousands of miles on it and pretty much lowering its value. It was amazing how much anger and thought went into that. While I was in graduate school, I worked as a consultant for 2 divorce lawyers. Their client was an aeroplane pilot who made a living at it. Because his wife worked part-time, there was a big difference in their income. It wasn't pretty when they split up. Tax season started during the process, but before the final decision. The wife's lawyer calls my office and tells me that her accountant called and they can. If they just share their W-2s, filing equally will save them about $8,000 each. That's what my boys told the husband. Screw her. She's going to lose $8,000 more than I will, he says. You're so cold, man. If your income in the Netherlands is less than a certain amount, the government will pay for most of your court fees. This means that if the split lasts a long time, the spouse who makes a steady income will have to pay a lot if one of them doesn't make much money and the other does. Because there are so many ways to drag things out, I've seen cases get close to ridiculously high billable hours. There is a catch, though. Your lawyer gets a set pay from the government. We still use these to keep track of the hours. In some cases, because you have to pay your own lawyer if the money you get from a divorce or something else is more than a certain amount. At the end of the divorce process, this woman who thought she was playing her ex-husband by waiting so long to file for divorce got 40,000 euros as payment. The bad news is that she had to pay back most of those attorney fees right away. It seemed like things were fair there. Shows over and over that lawyers are usually the only ones who can really win a dispute. While this lender has seen it happen before, a shared overdraft or credit card will suddenly show up, split, which caught one of the parties by surprise. Naturally used up all their resources. It's especially bad when young kids or college students are heartbroken after a breakup and end up with too much debt to handle. I knew a man whose wife had slept with another man, carried his child, and told him she was married to someone else. After that, they start the divorce process for some other reason. The partner finds out after a paternity test that the child is not his, but the courts decide that he should still pay child support because it is in the best interest of the kid. My client was a husband who worked as a CVS cashier and a wife who was a teacher. I talked about, in the name of the wife. The woman took care of herself, her husband, and their 2 children, making her the main provider for the family. One of the kids had serious autism and needed therapy and learning that cost a lot of money and took a lot of time. The husband, who was living alone, sued the wife for temporary spousal support while the split was going on. The wife was raising both children. He met all the legal standards to get it, but something about it seemed fishy. The judge ruled against all the facts on the day of the hearing and took 20 minutes to really get mad at your husband. He called him a disgusting being who represented all the bad things about society. Next, the judge said he couldn't do anything else but accept the spousal support. He made it clear that he didn't like the husband, though. The partner kept telling my crying client, just like Goodfellas, screw you, as we were leaving court. It was the worst thing that people could do. Even though I'm not a divorce lawyer, my job as a banker gives me access to a lot of private information about people. This is what one of my clients told me. This breakup was pretty easy, but since I'm a professional, I don't want to know why. I'm worried about his money, though. My boyfriend was the main source of income in the house. I think he was a building manager, which means he planned the work, supervised the workers, and paid them. He was wonderful. His wife seemed to want everything, but the fact that she took his boat, which he had bought before they met, made him very angry. The funny thing is that she doesn't have enough money to move the boat with a truck or any other car. He had no choice but to legally drive his boat to where she was living and leave it there. His boat was not there. In the end, he asked me how old I was. I let him know that the time is 21. He told me I shouldn't get married. I get to keep everything I own in the end. I saw a future ex-wife get angry over a career military man's disability payments while he was still in the service. The lawyer bills didn't bother her because she had a new boyfriend who would pay them. Her soon-to-be ex-husband's disability payments had not yet been sent, so she dragged out the divorce and asset split process for months. The whole amount she would have been eligible for, about $400. This happened before the Supreme Court said that disability payments are not spousal property. It was something very small, not cents. A divorced couple who were married before and have a child. The wife gets to keep the child. Husband number 1 pays child support. Wife marries second husband. The child is adopted by the second husband. As of now, husband number 2 is the real father, so husband number 1 does not have to pay child support. The second husband and wife ask for a divorce. Due to the adoption, husband number 2 has to pay child support to the child. The wife remarries her first husband. The adopted father, husband number 2, still has to pay child support even though the child now lives with the biological father, husband number 1. My husband, who is a divorce lawyer, told me. Tell me about this one. The pair kept living together while they were getting a divorce, even though they had different bedrooms. The husband would buy snacks like chips or crackers and bring them home to his soon-to-be ex-wife. She would never open the bag and would smash the food until it was dust. He was always let down when he tried a new food that he thought was interesting. He did this and did not get any kind of payback or protection for it. He was still very angry about the dust bits. I worked as a court clerk and had to deal with a lot of divorce work. You would not believe how many people bring naked pictures of, taking their soon-to-be ex-partners to court as proof. The pictures are meant to make them feel bad, not because they have anything to do with the divorce process. Court files are public records unless the judge closes them. This means that anyone who wants to look can see the court file and all of the exhibits. The worst part of the court system is family court. Do not send someone naked pictures by email. She found out that her husband had been cheating on her. She once went back to the house they used to live in and replaced all the curtain rods with shrimp. The spouse who was trying to sell the house, but they couldn't figure out where the smell was coming from. Because it smells bad, he sells it for a lot less than it was worth. At the end of the day, the wife bought it. The husband or wife was a good person who took care of the family and was a great dad to the kids. His goal was to get a divorce over with as soon as possible. But his cheating wife seemed to want everything, even his soul. The house, child custody, and income were given to her, but both sides spent thousands of dollars on legal fees related to a journal and a vase. The wife's grandmother owned both of these things. Before she moved to the US, those were the only things she owned that had lived through the Holocaust. In the end, the judge said that those things also belonged to the wife. As soon as she got her hands on the notebook and vase, she smashed them both with a hammer. She put the broken vase pieces and the journal's ashes at the door of the one-bedroom flat he had to move into because of money problems. I did some work for the lawyer on this case. A good one, neighborhood broker for investments. Great clients in a business that has been around for a while. The wife runs a small business in the area. A favorite pastime. Doesn't make much money. Tried to get pregnant for a few years, working together with doctors and reproductive health clinics. Finally, the wife gets pregnant. 1 million to 1 chances. Takes care of the boy child. Let's skip ahead a few months. The wife goes on a day trip to a big city a few hours away to do some business at the market. The husband was ready for this and took the chance to have the child tested to see if he was the father instead. And then his. He knew he was firing blanks when they first showed up at the fertility center after being checked out. After that, he calls my boss's lawyer and we start making plans. A private investigator is keeping an eye on his wife while we get the case ready. His companion goes with her to tennis classes, the country club for lunch every day, to the doctor, and to hang out with her friends. Her friends decide to take her to the country club for her birthday. Now is our time. I ask her out loud what her name is, give her the divorce papers, and then explain why I want to get a divorce. Cheating on a partner. You are required to show up in county court. Blah blah. Her friends can't believe it. She and her friends, we are all caught cheating in the same groups. We are going to court to show proof that the husband is not the father and ask that his name be taken off the birth certificate. Because she doesn't want the child to become a state ward, the judge tells her to give a list of everyone she had sex with during the correct time frame for conception. The list comes from her. At the next court meeting, 10 guys with a wide range of personalities show up. The group has a trust fund prince, 2 cooks, an engineer, a doctor, a tennis teacher, and a few more people. It was John Doe that she talked about, not John Doe Jr. One was the father of the person they really needed. Everyone was told to give their DNA. Our client was able to get his name taken off of the birth record and will not have to pay alimony or child support. The baby's father and his ex-wife agree to pay child support and support payments for a number of years. She did tell on top at the end. The doctor was the one. The doctor is willing to pay for her to move out of the area as part of the deal. NDA was signed. The doctor had to keep up his good name and image because he was rich. The court let the father not be on the birth certificate because he would be paying for the child's care. A trust fund. The husband closed on their house while the wife was at work. He brought his mother with him, who signed the papers. After being married for a while, the woman asks to move out, but her mother gives her a notice to leave. Wife was. They didn't know they were housing rent. I was asked to take care of a legal case after a divorce. The man owed about $5,000 and hadn't been paid in years. He was already facing court action. He got in touch because he wanted the court ruling against the money she was looking through to stand. Because she didn't have health insurance, a dinner at the firehouse was planned to raise money for her cancer treatments. No, I said. My friend was a grade who could not stand his wife at all. He was asked to pay 3,000 rupees a month as short-term support. This man gets 3,000 rupees from the bank and gives it to his wife in court. I think it's fine. Then he says he wants the bag back, which makes his wife sit in court and count all the money. He should have his bag, though. This woman is stuck with 3,000 coins and no way to get anywhere. This man was a genius at being bad. I worked as a secretary before I became a lawyer. I tried to remember the name of the case I read about, but I couldn't. The couple had more than $15 million in assets, with the husband owning almost all of them before they got married. The husband wanted to leave his wife with no money, but the courts wanted to give her about $2 million and keep the rest for the husband. He finally spent all of his money to fight everywhere, submitting moves that don't add anything, and generally acting in a way that isn't polite. After paying court fees, fines, charges, and money lost on scams, the parties had a total of about $500,000 in assets. When the wife got all of it from the courts, he had no money at all. Man gets lucky in the lottery. $1 million. He doesn't tell his wife anything. Half of it should be hers, right? It's on tax forms, which his wife always signs without looking. All he has to do is write that the tax has already been paid. Getting apart. The husband doesn't make a mess. A large divorce payment, which her lawyer advises her to accept. He moves to a nearby town and goes about his normal life. He moves away from everyone he knows in the end. Then he moves again, cutting himself off from everyone else. He starts to spend the money after that. I have a story to tell you. The man has lived on the family farm his whole life. The man who raised him has died, but his mother still lives with him. For some reason, his mother thinks he should get married when he gets a little older. He finds someone on the internet. Even though she already has a teenage daughter, it doesn't matter. As things go on, they are all living together on the land. He tells her to take care of the books while he works on the land. When the husband's wife finds out how much money he really has, she spends a lot of it. Sends the daughter to fancy schools, starts buying expensive things etc., but she can't pay the farm's bills. The land was still mortgaged. When the bank calls to tell him he's past due and nothing has been paid, he finds out about it. In the end, he gives up the land. It's getting hot between him and his wife. Even though they always owned the house, she kicked him and his mother out when they broke up. So he leaves for the city. It makes him mad. After all, he had lived his whole life farming in the country. Then he calls his friend and asks if he can come back to the city and stay at his house. He gets to the house of his friend. The friend is not there. He instead finds out about his ex-wife and her kids. He lost it. Getting a gun out of his car, he shot both of them and killed them. As an attorney, my husband has told me a few stories. His 5-year-old child was being abused, and when his wife found out, she left him and asked for custody. So that his wife wouldn't get custody of the girl too, the angry sob said she was beating the child. It was all of a sudden clear to the girl's husband that she had also been abused by her wife's parents when she went to see them. Once more, everything was done to keep the wife from getting custody. The girl spent a whole year in foster care while the investigations went on. In the end, the wife and her parents were found not guilty. He served his time, and then the father can now have limited visits. Following was a story about a woman whose husband sold guns for a living and loved shooting very much. She blamed him for domestic violence because she knew he would not be able to own or carry a gun anymore. First, a woman who was getting a divorce talked her soon-to-be ex into getting back together. She then wooed him, offered him alcohol, and finally kicked him out of the house. She called the cops after seeing someone swerving on the road. His job was taken away and he went to jail because of the DUI. He made a living by driving. Lastly, a man offered to give his wife custody of their kids. In return for her promise not to ask for alimony or a split of their assets, he gave her twin girls. The split was finalized after she gave her permission. On the day the papers were signed, he asked for full custody of the twins, saying he could care for them better because he made more money, lived in a bigger house than she did, etc. He told his lawyer to leave her with as little money as possible. He went after one of them and forever split the twins when the judge wouldn't give him custody as they had agreed. There are a lot of stories, but the ones that scare me the most normally go like this. Wife gives birth. The husband has no interest in the child at all, and even thinks that the child is taking his attention away from him. Tells wife that she is responsible for all of the kid's money and care. Wife knows her husband is a bad partner because he's a bad dad. In fact, she would rather be a single mom than deal with his acting like a child. A request for divorce is sent in. The husband's lawyer tells him that the more time he spends with his child, the less child support he will have to pay. The spouse starts going to the child's doctor's appointments, doing things with the child, and generally acting like a parent. After a while, they got a divorce. The husband loves being a parent and owns a 50/50 vacation. The wife only wanted her husband to care about the child, but she had to file for divorce to get what she wanted. I worked as a law clerk and took care of this case. The wife, 2 kids, and husband moved to a new place with him because he had to work overseas. While his wife was a stay-at-home mom and didn't make any money on her own, he made a lot of money and paid all of his bills. The husband and wife left their marriage and moved back to Sweden. The wife then sued for alimony, which she was legally entitled to so she could continue to care for the kids every other week. After being out of work for a long time, she had a hard time finding work again. Not saving anything, etc. The spouse said all of a sudden that he was broke, even though he hadn't had to pay for anything in years. Because he needed a place to live, he had to spend the little $1 million he had on an apartment in one of the most expensive areas. After you subscribe, don't forget to click the bell to turn on alerts.